All right. Hello, everybody. Tara Bachland here with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, here for another episode of Becoming an Herbalist. I've got a treat for you today because this is quite a unique person here. Rita Hogan is, she calls herself the Canine Herbalist. And if that isn't inspiring to see how you can apply your love and talent for herbalism into a unique realm, I don't know what is. And so I'm so excited to finally be talking with Rita. I've been following you on Facebook for quite a while, and I'm so excited that we're finally talking. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. So yeah, totally fun. Yeah, I'm definitely a niche. I'm a canine herbalist, and I love it. So absolutely love it.
Well, many people love dogs, love animals in general. I have my kitty here. She's chilling out while we're podcasting here. And they've just become, I think, even more and more a part of our lives. And so if we can learn how to take care of them as well as we take care of our human family members, I just think that's ever more comforting and inspiring as well.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And it's sometimes it's hard for people to, they can take care of themselves and kind of see themselves, using herbs and different health modalities. But when it crosses over to their animals, uh, sometimes they don't even think about it, you
Mhm.
know. And so I tend to. I mean, I work with humans too, but mostly it's dogs and a wee bit of cats. And you know, one of my goals is kind of to bridge that gap for people and veterinarians.
Wonderful. So how did you get into it? Did you have a veterinary background or just a love and passion for animals?
No, it's one of the reasons why I'm so excited to be on your show, on your podcast, is that so my dad taught me about plants, and he was a farmer, and um, then I kind of just went through my 20s, grew up, kind of went through my 20s. I studied Ayurveda. It didn't resonate with me. I mean, the process and practice did, but not the herbs. Um,
Mm.
I really went back to the herbs that I grew up with, and I bought a farm in Tennessee, and my partner and I moved on about 36 acres, and we started boarding dogs. And I started seeing how sick the dogs were. And at that time, I decided when I was 30, I decided to go to become a Western herbalist. I didn't even know what that was. I just decided that I was going to go back to some of the things that my dad taught me um, and start exploring that by myself. And then when I started boarding dogs, I also started a pug dog rescue. I love pugs, and um, we did a ton of rescue, kind of parallel to boarding dogs, and I started using herbs on the pugs, and then I mean we rescued like through over 300 pugs in 6 years. And so I had this lovely veterinarian, Dr. Kevin Brummett in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, lovely man. He would help me. I learned a lot from him, and I think he learned some stuff from me. And then when I started boarding dogs on our property, it was like kennel free, and people would hand me a bag of kibble and then a bag of pharmaceuticals, and I thought, something's off here. This isn't working. So I started just kind of taking human herbalism, what I could learn about it, and at the time, because there wasn't anything, the internet was just like kind of getting going. There wasn't anything really you could learn on the internet very much at all. Um, and just like the books in my local library and people around me, I found some mentors. And my neighbor actually was this farmer guy that knew every plant known to man on our, like, I lived in this holler. They called it a holler. And he knew every plant. And so he taught me a lot about the local plants there. And then things just started dominoing. Like, I would notice a dog, limping. And I'm like, first I dealt with diet. So diet is always first. It's the catalyst for everything. And so I would deal with the dog's diet, help them get on a better diet. And then I would suggest a few herbs. I started making medicines of my own in 2002. I started with 2 salves that are still in commercial use right now. In 2007, I made this other thing to relax dogs. It's still in commercial use. Just I sold that company, so it's with someone else now. But those products are still doing great, which makes me smile. I carry them in my store right now, so it's weird that I have to pay for them, which is kind of weird. Like I have to pay wholesale to get them because I don't make them anymore. So things just started dominoing, and my kennel clients were my first clients, and I had such a success with my product line and my recommendations with the pugs, getting the pugs well, because most herbs in Western herbalism are non-toxic. Most, and especially the ones that I would use when pugs would come into rescue, helping to calm their nervous systems, helping with their liver and their lymphatic system. But the cool thing is that I started kind of bewildered on the amount of tincture that was being recommended in some of the herbal books that I purchased. They were very general, not a lot going on. And then I got Matt's book, Seven Plants as Teachers. And when he talked about spirit dosing and drop dosing, and I had brought the tincture doses down really low with my dog clients and was seeing really good results, but I was second guessing myself on all the recommendations that I was seeing, according, like when I did the math on weight and stuff, I'm like, it still feels like it's too much. And when I read his book, I got it at a used bookstore in Nashville, Tennessee, Rhino Books. And when I read his book, I really felt so validated. I was like, okay, I'm not crazy. Like, this does have an effect on the constitution of an animal or a person. And I'm just going to keep on going with this method, unless it's something that needs a material dose, that needs a higher dose. And things just kind of took off from there. And then I read Dr. Schwartz's book, Four Paws, Five Directions. I have all these books on my shelf. They're staples, like old friends. And then I got the book Veterinary Herbalism, which is just huge and very detailed. It's for vets, and I read that nonstop. And I read Matt's traditional Western herbalism book, and learned about energetics, and it just gave me a structure of what I was looking at. Like, certain herbs wouldn't work with certain dogs, and ginger, just unless it was just used for a few days, would start having a negative effect on some of these more warmer to hot dogs and things like that. And when I read his books and really got energetics, it blew my mind. And I started applying it. Like, I just shifted my practice, and it went even further. Right. And so, I could geek out on herbs forever. And so it just made me so happy. And I was like, this was the missing piece. Oh my God. And I really just started looking at traditional Chinese medicine diagnostics, like how the body speaks according to dogs. It's a little different for dogs and humans. But a lot of that, but not, like, again, I didn't gravitate towards traditional Chinese medicine. I think, like, mixing them is okay to a point, but you either have to dedicate yourself to TCVM or to Western herbalism to really kind of hone your craft. Like, what do you want to focus on? And, like, that's what I tell my students. Like, what I'm teaching you may not gravitate towards, but you may start, looking at, like, the 5-element theory, and really start gravitating toward that, like wood and metal and things like that. And I think you need to focus on either one. You can blend a few of your favorite things, which I definitely do, because I use homeopathy, I use flower essences, and I use TCVM diagnostics, like kidney and liver, and that whole idea of spleen. But for me, a lot of that is also kind of celebrated in the language. And I don't have that language, you know.
There
My
seems,
friends,
there seems to be a cultural component to,
yes,
yeah.
yes. There is a huge culture. I mean, a lot is lost in the language translation. So for me, Western herbalism just resonated. And so I kind of, you know, took some pieces here and there. And I still am, still am mapping things onto the dog in general. Like I just tried to learn as much about Western herbalism as I could, and then just started kind of filtering it through my experience with dogs.
Mhm.
Um, and then it came out the other side. And dogs are interesting because medicine doesn't, for me, you know, dogs have such short digestive systems, um, that it's interesting, and they don't get in their way so much as humans do. We all get in our way with our
Mm.
constant critical thinking and thought processes and things like that. So I think they're much more conducive to plant medicine in general. And I have definitely seen like that play out in my practice when, versus working with humans. And it's just been awesome. I mean, it really just has been great. It's been 20 years, over 20 years.
And you
And
have a book coming out too.
yes, I do.
What are the
I
topics that you cover in the book? Is this something that a layperson can open up and really get into?
absolutely. So it is a teaching book. So it's, one of my goals before I leave the planet is to help veterinarians, integrative practitioners, and a layperson to recognize things in their dog, kind of taking everything that I've learned and filtering it through the dog and putting it on paper. And from my experience in my practice over the last 2 decades, uh, it's 50% teaching. So I teach about energetics. I really think it's a vital piece of plant language,
Mhm.
and how plants express themselves, and how humans and dogs express themselves. And then so I go through like what holistic canine herbalism is versus allopathic herbalism. So I cover that. I cover plant language, and then I go into a little bit about diet because diet is so important. And then working into the systems of the body, the main ones that I deal with. Everything's connected for me. The dog's an ecosystem. So kind of talking about that ecosystem and how it presents itself for like the main things that we're seeing happening in dogs right now. Longevity, the decrease in longevity is huge, huge right now, because a dog is being looked at as geriatric between the ages of 7 and 10, which for me is absolutely ridiculous. It's what we're doing to them, or not doing to them. Diet is a big thing, and it's just kind of went down and down, as far as like feeding kibble and not actually feeding our dogs.
Do you
And
recommend, are you a big raw food promoter?
I am. I feed my dogs raw. Have forever, but I did start out with kibble. I had a horrible experience with my pug Finbar, and that kind of put me on the all natural dog train. I didn't even pay attention to the ingredients in 4 years ago. I never even paid attention to it.
Yeah.
And then my dog started getting sick nonstop, and I'm like, what is happening? And I turned the bag over, and I spent some time looking up what these ingredients were, and I was just floored. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, this can't be legal. Like, how can this be legal? And it's legal. And of course, it's legal in our human food system as well. So it's just really, it was like, oh my God. So I started feeding fresh and meeting, minimally processed, cooked food, raw food, freeze-dried food, uh, dehydrated food. And, when I had my boarding kennel, I required like what I would call high-end kibble, if not regular food, but I promoted high-end kibble. And there's a huge difference between when someone gives a really highly processed kibble. It's all processed, but there's a kibble hierarchy for sure. And that's where I started with my boarding dogs, and you would see the huge change in their body shape, their behavior, even going up on the kibble hierarchy. So then when you start feeding them fresh food, it's such a shift. But it's hard, I like to meet people where they're at,
Yeah.
and help them where they're at, and help them get there where they're comfortable in going, kind of as quick as possible, but also as slow as possible, because it is quite overwhelming to take it all in. So I teach people about their dog's ecosystem. And then the second half of the book is about herbal remedies and ailments, and then materia medica that is focused on what I talk about in the book. So, and give them pretty much everything they need, dosages and acute dosages, material dosages, safety, cautions, interactions. So a good materia medica. And I'm just really excited because it's been a dream to have my book published. And my book was a product of being an herbalist. Being an herbalist can take on so many different routes. Like if I was a recipe, right? You have that recipe of experience, which I think is really important, no matter where you're at, and no matter where you're at, you're valid. Even when you start your plant path, you're valid. And you just kind of move up in your experience. And I really encourage people to get as many kind of experiences with other people, and see those different parts of herbalism. So if I was a recipe, I do formulating for a lot of dog product companies. I do a lot of teaching, and I taught a group of, it started out around 40 women for 4.5 years. And we showed up for each other every Thursday. I think we missed about 10 sessions in 4.5 years, which is pretty phenomenal. And the book is a product of showing up for those women that wanted to learn canine herbalism. And now I have, I believe, 8 of those women that are practicing full time now.
Wow.
And I've also started a school. It's called the Ethos School of Canine Herbalism. I'm just starting that out. I've got a few courses. I've got an energetics course. I've got a level 1 canine herbalism course. I have a dental course, and like for dogs, a flea course. And in the future, we'll be dealing with, the lymphatic system, the thyroid, all those different systems, to get people to understand them in kind of in an interactive way, according to how dogs, function. So I'm looking forward to that, to kind of just building up that repertoire of courses. And then I do full-time consulting.
You're very industrious person. I mean, from jumping in and having a farm back in the day and starting the business, it sounds like you are just like it sounds like you and business go well together. You're full of ideas and energy, and obviously intelligent to put it all together too. Can I ask a few questions for the audience to see? Yeah. Because we love our animals, like I mentioned, and they're just, I think, well, I know that they just bless us as much as, even more than often we bless them. And so what would you say you're saying that dogs in particular are aging much faster than they really need to. What would you say if you're to name the top 2 or 3 culprits? You mentioned food. What would you say are the other things?
Poor diet, over-vaccination, and heavy use of antibiotics. And then number 4 is, all of them, our stress. So I think our stress is just a huge one, but lack of exercise, definitely over-vaccination. We vaccinate dogs. We don't vaccinate anyone like we vaccinate dogs. We don't vaccinate anything like we vaccinate dogs. It's starting to show up more in the horse world. But over-vaccination is it's really taking its toll on the immune system. And the overuse of antibiotics causes, microbial stress It causes the microbiome to be stressed. And it causes early aging because it messes with the liver function. Like the body's an ecosystem, and it really throws off that ecosystem when you start killing off, millions of microbes. So we are our microbes, and we are the health of our microbes. So just like plants, we don't want to kill, we're using things to kill off their microbial systems as well. And so I think that has a big deal. And then exercise, dogs spend so much time inside. We need to get our animals outside on the ground, doing age appropriate exercise, interactive play, get off our cell phone when we're walking our dog, get off your cell phone. Take some time to be present in nature with your dog. Your dog loves nature just as much as you do, if not more. And our stress is their stress. When we're stressing out, the cool thing about dogs is that, unlike humans, humans could have it, but we have to get in touch with our bodies much more. But the cool thing about dogs is they can smell how you're doing. You can't hide it. Right. So when we're balls of stress, worrying about these little things, and all of this stuff that we just preoccupy ourselves with, not taking time to be present and breathing and getting outside and getting that anxiety out of our bodies, we smell like adrenaline and cortisol. And when our dogs smell us, they're like, what is the matter? Is it me? What's happening? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? They're very concerned about what we're doing. And we share our stress with our dogs. So especially through our heart energy. And, the Heart Math Institute is a phenomenal place where you can learn about heart energy and how it vibrates outward, 6 to 8 feet. And we share these vibrations with our animals. And again, I tell people, a lot of people will do more for their animals than they will for themselves. But I tell people, take care of yourself first, because that is taking care of your animal. It is taking care, it's bringing down their stress. So, and get outside. Get outside. I think breathing fresh air is more important than almost anything.
I could see that. A couple of thoughts. My grandma, she's 83 years old now, and she's always taken in, not necessarily stray animals, although stray animals as well, but like whoever's animal that needed a home. Maybe they had to move to an apartment and they couldn't take it with them. And she had this cutest little dog, like a Pomeranian mix, for a number of years. Little fluffy dog named Tuffy. And like a little kind of a terrier Pomeranian mix, just a little teddy bear,
Yeah.
And she just absolutely loved this little dog. And of course, Tuffy passed away, and she was just heartbroken. But I could see how much they not only had a bond, but Tuffy kept my grandma going. I know that her health was even better. At 83, she still works part-time. She's cognizant. And now she has another foster dog when her sister-in-law went into the nursing home. And it's just absolutely amazing how, they keep us going as well. And it's just, I just love seeing that. And if often, even though she's 83, and it's like, well, where's grandma going to be next? But I'm like, I hope she keeps having dogs, and she's just so much happier. And that dog is even better, has lost weight, is by all means old, but, has improved as well.
Yeah. It's really important. Like I take care of my mom, who's 94, and she's going to be 94 in a couple months. And all my dogs, she's obsessed with them, always has been. She really can't take care of her own dog anymore. But all of our dogs and our cats are hers. And she's very interactive with them. That and plants. She loves, we give her the back deck to put plants out and to deal with her plants. She loves her sunflowers. She talks to her rose. She's very concerned about if are people taking care of her and watering them. She reminds us all every single day, make sure you take care of my babies, that, I'm going to go out. She'll go out there with her little cane and make sure that everyone's doing their job. But, it's important. It's important for animals to have a bond. And it's important for people, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My past cat was a huge insight into my own well-being. Sometimes you get so outwardly focused that you can't see yourself, and that's why we need other practitioners to help us also, right? It's really hard to see our own condition. But she was developing hyperthyroid, but at the time she was just what do they call it? It's not just yowling. She was yowling at night, but she was rather talkative too. And I realized it was at the time where my mind was very active that she would be very talkative. And that itself too was a very interesting, like you say, our animals take on our stress. That was an eye opener for me, that she was reflecting back to me what was going on in my mind. It was such an interesting experience.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that they are here for us to help us figure out kind of what's going on if we really start to pay attention to our animals. And, I have many, many clients where their dog might have IBD or, even like hyperthyroid in cats or hypothyroid in dogs is rampant. Like when they have a bad flare is usually when their parents are having problems. They're moving, they're fighting with their spouses, they're burning the candle at both ends. All of that stuff you have, like, if you really start paying attention to your animals, you'll understand. Like, if a dog gets diarrhea, right? My first question to anyone is, how's your stress? Because a lot of times that's linked to what we're doing. Or acid reflux too dogs can have a bout of acid reflux when their people are freaking out or they're panicking or they happen to have PTSD. I think there's a huge correlation between PTSD and acid reflux in dogs and their owners having PTSD. Because when you right away, what I'll do is I will give like a homeopathic for the nervous system, like maybe aconite, and see if things get better right away. And they usually do for both people.
I was just going to ask, do you also help both clients, right? The owner and the dog?
Yeah. There's this wonderful phytoembryonic, this stem cell therapy from fig. And it is such a wonderful gut remedy, but it's like a gut brain remedy. And it really helps with activating the vagus nerve when someone is stuck in fight or flight. And I really like to use it along with aconite. And it's so interesting because I'll give it to the person and their dog.
Wow.
And just see, things start to happen with that particular, when I suspect that it is stress and someone is just in fight or flight, and I think that a lot of humans are so used to being in fight or flight that they don't even realize they're in fight or flight. And then, their guts go off or they stop digesting food correctly. They start getting rumbly belly, and so do their animals. And they just don't know. And like I said, they just smell like cortisol and adrenaline. And our animals interpret us through their smell because their smells, is so much better than ours is, for sure.
Mm-hmm. How often do you end up giving remedies to the parent or the pet owner as well as the dog?
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that, and most people are very conducive to it.
Yeah.
Being in the pet world, and part of being an herbalist, who does consulting. I can't speak for the other kind of aspects of being an herbalist, but part of being an herbalist and doing consulting is also meeting people where they're at and understanding the human psyche is kind of like what's going on there, because you're not just working with the animal, you're working with that bond, you're working with that person as well, and kind of really meeting them figuring out, okay, so kind of what's going on. And one of the biggest kind of themes for me in my practice, for a lot of my practices with women, and is guilt and shame. So guilt and shame has a huge kind of bearing down on women in my niche. And I mean, a lot of people feel so guilty. They have a lot of guilt from like when a dog dies, and then they feel really guilty that they didn't know the knowledge they have today back when that dog died then, and they could have done something different, right? And kind of going down that rabbit hole of guilt in that situation. And then a lot of women in general that I have experienced have shame from for one reason or the other, and it really does affect their conversation with themselves. And I think by working with that and helping that, and dogs really help that for them, I think dogs take on a burden of the human psyche. I mean, I think that being an herbalist, a consulting herbalist, is looking at what's going on for the person. Because I know when I work with people, when they get my person questionnaire, a lot of it is about their emotions. A lot of it is about how they grew up. A lot of it is about talking about something they kind of never gotten over. Is there something physical you feel like you could never really gotten over, or something mental? And a lot of it has to do with shame and guilt. And I always tell people, our dogs want what's best for us. They do, and they are there for us for everything. And their love is unconditional. It is really unconditional, and they show that every day. And I think that, I always look to my dogs for ways to be a better human. Dogs meet people where they're at. They accept you for who you are. They love you no matter what you look like, no matter what your shape is, and they don't hold you to your darkest moments. And those are some tenets to really strive for as human beings.
Absolutely. Like all the phrases we see on social media, that remind us, like dog spelled get backwards is God, all these things that just deep down, it's like, yeah, that's true. It seems like, right. There's those things. I'm curious, since you said that dogs, clearly we've seen this too, that take on their person's emotions. What do you think then of support animals that, if a person, for example, does have PTSD and then they have a support dog? Tell me what you think of that dynamic.
I really think that dog needs extra support. I think their nervous system needs extra support. One of my students that has worked with me for 4.5 years, her name's Katie, and she's blind, and she has a wonderful relationship with her dog. Just cares for him so much. And I think that I would love to have that conversation with Katie. We haven't not had that yet, but I've worked with her and the health of her dog. Her dog has some arthritis, and she's actually really turned into a wonderful herbalist. And she goes above and beyond to support her dog's nervous system, because they are taking on some of that burden as a service dog. But the good thing is that I think that the bond that they have with their caregiver, I think, is a phenomenal bond that we don't understand, because, I mean, it's not like, I don't think people have ever studied it. But when you see that bond, it's pretty phenomenal. And and it's kind of, Tara, it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but you look at dogs, street dogs, okay, homeless dogs. The majority of people who are homeless that have dogs, those dogs are hardly ever on a leash. I don't know if you've noticed that. They're not stressed. They live pretty great lives for those cities that have support. Like our city has a lot of support for homeless people with dogs. They make sure they're fed. They make sure that they get care. They make sure they're warm. They always have a coat on. But a lot of the dogs that I've met with the homeless people here in my town, they're so stressed. It's pretty phenomenal.
They're so,
And
sorry, your internet or one of our internet went out. They're so what?
they're so less stressed.
Oh, why?
And I
That's
think,
interesting.
well, I think it's one, fresh air.
Mm.
I think that fresh air is just air pollution is so rampant, and it's something that we don't see. We don't see the effects of it, right? Because we can't see it, but we're all breathing in lots of stuff that's in our house, fire retardants and all that kind of, stuff that our furniture is made out of, and our computers and all those things that are polluting the air. Air pollution is kind of one of the last things we kind of touch on when we're working on the environment of our homes. But dogs that have access to the outside in a considerable amount, I feel that are much healthier. And I'm not telling someone to keep their dog outside, but I am saying, to give your dog more access to fresh air in general. A lot of people keep their blinds down, their homes tight. They don't open their windows. They don't open their screens, or they don't have screens on their windows, and we need to get that air going. And also, a lot of homeless people, and I'm not talking about, people that are like really experiencing a lot of drug addiction. I'm talking about like general homeless people that I interact with all the time where I live. They don't have the stress that we do. Their main stress is eating. I mean, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I was walking around the lake this morning, and I saw a man sleeping on this bench right next to the lake. And I said to my partner, I said, God, I would love to just lay right there and take a nap. Like that would be the lake. I mean, it was such a nice day. It was morning. The birds were chirping. I mean, it's just beautiful. And I was like, God, that would be awesome. And he was just laying there, just, looking so peaceful. And I'm not saying there's, I'm not for homelessness. That's not what I'm saying. But a long time ago, people who had homes used to spend more time doing that. And if you go out of the country and you go into some like Portugal, and my friend who lives on the ocean in Colombia, they spend a good portion of the day. He spends like an hour and a half to 2 hours sleeping like every day on the sand. My friend Diedrich, right? Like he takes a siesta. Here in America, that's looked down. It's frowned upon.
Mm-hmm. Sounds heavenly.
I know. And I think it's one of the reasons why, farm dogs who live on farms, they don't have the stress. They might have an interaction with more pollutants if a farmer uses like glyphosate or something like that. But, if it's a nice, healthy, organic farm, they're out with their owners working the farm, right? Yeah. And they're running, they're breathing, they're happy, they're interacting with their environment. And that's what dogs are supposed to do. And it's also what we're supposed to do. So, we did a lot when my mother was young. They did a lot more resting than we do now. It literally is looked down upon. You're not being productive.
Yeah, it is. I've a number of times, so we just have cats, but I've sometimes thought of getting a dog just for that reminder. Like I love getting outside, but there's always like something to work on, something to do. And, the animal was like, even a cat, she has to be, I play with her every morning. In particular, we have our playtime, there's just that reminder, like, yeah, get back to nature, you all need it. It's such a healthy thing to do. So
it really is.
Maybe
pitch
something
in your yard.
Yeah, that would
we pitch a tent in our yard in the summer.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Another question: what would be some, we've just opened up a class, tongue evaluation, for example, with Matthew. So we're teaching and learning online. What are the indications in the tongue? Because amazingly, the tongue will even indicate certain organs that are not doing well. But that takes some practice, which is obviously why we're doing the class. I'm aware that you can do similar things with animals. So what can let's say the layperson who's just getting into this concept, what are some signs and symptoms that they can look for in their animals before it progresses into something more serious?
Well, you can you can read the tongue of a dog. It's hard to do. You have to get them at a certain time when they're relaxed, and they'll stick their tongue out. And depending on the breed, like a large flabby tongue sticking over the teeth, there's dampness there. You can kind of see the stomach and the spleen and the heart here. You can see that, or like the kind of scalloped edges when there's some hypothyroid there. You can see those types of things, the spleen streamers. But obviously that's not your layperson stuff. But for like someone just getting into it, one of my biggest things, and this is a huge issue for dogs, is kidney. So before something like shows up on blood work, which then, we have a major issue going on. Okay. But before it does, the kidney, you have dogs that have excessive ear infections. So, the kidney opens out to the ears. You have dogs that have lots of ear infections. They're always getting ear infections. That's a big sign that the kidney needs help. Dogs that moan and groan when they lay down. They, that groaning noise is of the kidney, and they're always, that sound, for sure. Dogs that are fearful. When I have clients that have dogs that are afraid of everything, they're really jumpy. Noises bother them constantly. They always want to give them something for the nervous system, which is great. Yes. However, you need to address that kidney first. I always address the kidney first, and 9 times out of 10, that behavior goes away. I will give them something from the nervous system, but if you don't address the kidney as well, the fear doesn't start to go away. Dogs that are really afraid are having kidney weakness, and you see it a lot in rescues and dogs that have had trauma. Their kidneys are always pretty weak, and they're afraid of everything. Every noise they're barking, they're, getting crazy about. They don't want to go on walks. They don't want to go on car rides. They're afraid of thunderstorms, that kind of things. And they also feed off of our fear. So we need to try to, at least act confident. But kidney noises are a big thing. And then liver, dogs get a lot of lipomas. So lipomas are a sign of too much damp.
Are those like fatty
lumps, fatty tumors. They definitely are a sign that the liver is congested. The liver is so amazing that it just walls off toxins in your body. And in the veterinary industry, a lot of lipomas are seen as just with age, but now we're seeing lipomas in dogs that are super young and like really young, like 3 years old, getting lipomas. And it's always the liver. You start supporting the liver and the lymphatic system. Also, the kidneys and things like that, but focusing on the liver and the lymphatic system, and those lipomas go away. And I mean, some dogs have lipomas that are the size of a football.
Wow.
They get so big that they kind of really impede their movements and things like that. And those ones are much harder to shrink, but they do shrink. And you want them to shrink slowly because the liver has to process all of the shrinkage. It's so you get that liver to the point where it's not so congested. But like the warts, the little the smaller lipomas, larger lipomas, the liver kicking out to the skin is a good sign of liver issues. And then, another thing that is kind of overlooked and with the tongue can tell a lot of is, spleen weakness. Because in veterinary care, it's very commonplace to take out the spleen.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. And the spleen is such a big part of the immune system and the lymphatic system. So, and a lot of people their vets will say, oh, no, it's fine. They're going to be just fine. No, not in my opinion. They need then they need a very, strong regimen of immune care, plus all that cold. When you remove the spleen, cold really gets into the core of the dog. And so like energetics will shift temporarily to like cold. And you really have to warm that dog up. And then I would say after a couple of years of not having the spleen, the body does, the body's amazing how it can compensate. It'll start compensating. But for like, you can't remove an organ. Your organ removal is always at a cost. I've had a few removed myself, and it definitely is at a cost when I was young. And it's like, even your appendix is important.
I mean, it's not just hanging out there for fun.
Yeah, it's just hanging out there. It's not a part of the immune system at all. Your tonsils, take them out. Women don't need their reproductive organs. Take them out. You're having bad period pain, endometriosis, just give her a hysterectomy. So that is a problem. And in the dog world, Tara, we tend to spay and neuter our dogs, right? I am not a big proponent of spay and neuter if you can keep your dogs from reproducing with other dogs, right? If you're the type of person that's like, I have a unspayed female. She's 12 pounds. She's adorable. She gets a little crabby around her cycle. But there is no way that any dog is impregnating her when she is in heat. I make sure of that. She lives a very small lifestyle when she's in heat, right? And then the rest of the time, she's on a leash, or I have a huge yard and she's 12 pounds. So she can run around it and get some really great exercise. But like, if you can keep your dog from getting pregnant and overproducing dogs, dog populations are a problem, especially depending on where you live. When I lived in Tennessee and did rescue, I was a huge proponent of spay and neuter because of all the problems I saw. So there's a fine line with that. And I don't know if you experience this with humans, but people tend to forget that their dog is spayed or neutered and act like everything should be fine when you just removed a huge part of their reproductive and endocrine system. So that also comes at a cost. And you can support that with herbs and glandulars and different types of healing modalities for sure, but it's not the same as when they have their parts. Dogs and cats were never neutered a really long time ago, like 80 years ago. They were hardly ever spayed and neutered. Growing up, we never had spayed or neutered animals.
How does it tend to affect dogs?
Well, it really messes with their endocrine system. It causes early aging. The liver is compromised. I mean, when they get spayed and neutered, and a lot of people don't support their dog's hormonal systems when this happens, right? And there's a practice now of spaying and neutering dogs and spaying them when they are like under 4 months old, 3 months old. Some dogs are getting neutered at like, I think it's like 13, 14 weeks. I don't know exactly the statistics on that, but it's so young that it's crazy to me. For me, a girl needs to go through a few heat cycles. A boy needs to mature. He needs to mature, completely needs to mature before you neuter him. And you need support. We use glandulars as a means of support in the raw feeding world. And saw palmetto is an excellent way to help male dogs. I use some different phytoembryonic therapies like sequoia buds and things like that. But female dogs do really well on raspberry or raspberry embryonic, which I use, that I love for female dogs, or cowberry, Vitis vinifera, cowberry. I don't know what I don't. That one has a lot of common names: wineberry, cowberry. But they need that work.
When you say phytoembryonics, these are plant medicines. They're in a cellular.
Yeah, so they're usually they can be made in a normal tincture way, but they're usually spagyrics. But yeah, the fig is made from the bud, or like the raspberry is made from the young shoots, or the horsetail is made from the shoots that are about that big, very young shoots. Yeah, I use phytoembryonic therapy. I also teach a course in it. I got introduced to it about 10 years ago. And I always just called it plant bud medicine, using the buds. Like like the buds of clematis. Like clematis is not non-toxic in any way, but the buds are less toxic, and they do really good for the buds. Work really well for the morphology of sperm when they are not the correct shape. And so I use it with men that have really poor sperm morphology. And that one is just a tried and true for me, for men who have that problem. You only take a tiny bit, but it's so less toxic than using clematis. And if you ever look at the bud, it looks like a sperm for sure.
Interesting. The clematis bud?
Clematis bud.
Huh.
Yeah. 50% glycerin, 25% water, 25% alcohol, about, I would say, at least 80 proof. Not 80 proof, I'm sorry, at least 100 proof.
Okay.
So you can use Everclear. Yeah. The plant bud medicine is fascinating.
Doctor signatures on a tiny level.
Yes. I could geek out about that all day long. So, and what I love about it is just seeing, and this is part of being an herbalist, right? Is kind of like trying things out and figuring things out, and putting things through your brain and having it come out kind of in a different way. I just love that about different parts of plants, the different parts of plants that give you access, that one part may not be as toxic as the other. Solomon seal root is fabulous. And other parts of the plant, not so much. And, and plant bud medicine, like there's a phytoembryonic of maize, of corn, germinating seeds, right? Germinating seeds. That is just so cleansing to the body. When, corn is not. And the corn silk is completely, it doesn't have any of the properties of the corn silk. So it's just really interesting. And those embryonics have, undifferentiated cells that can take on. So there's a lot of studies right now going on. There's a man called Dr. Joseph Canillo, and he's in Italy, and he does all this research on embryonic plant medicine. And it's fascinating. The epigenetic factors that are going on, like turning certain genes, like the MTHFR gene that turns on in people and that causes them not to detox in their liver very well. Just completely getting that to shut off its expression using these plant bud medicines. Wow. So, I mean, it's just fascinating. And part of being an herbalist is geeking out on these things and getting involved and seeing how you can contribute. And I find that a really great part of being an herbalist, for sure.
Do you feel that you get insights because you work with humans and animals, but do you feel that you get insights through the animals that you don't get through the humans?
Yes. Again, animals don't get in their way. They don't have a huge story of, like the I ams. I hear a lot of I ams with people like, I'm just a person that's late all the time. I'm just a person that doesn't detox in my liver very well. I am I am, and all of these stories about who you are, that I feel that we need to change these dialogues about ourselves, right? Especially things that are rooted in the past, like 50 years ago. That may be who you were then, but that's not who you are now. And changing that language, you don't have to do that with animals. So I find that medicine works quicker, especially if, like we both have experienced that medicine where you give 2 drops of something to a human, to a person, and it completely shifts their body, right? And the thing that the ailment, it was so well indicated that and they were so open to it that it just shifted, right? I love that. That is not the case a lot of the time. And so animals, that happens so much more. And they really let you know when something's not well indicated. And also they have an ability towards self-selection that I don't think humans have. I think humans have it, but they've lost that connection with themselves, right? They can smell something. They can smell something like offering them a dried herb, right? They will let you know, like, I'm not having that. Like, I don't want that.
What signs should we be looking for in our animals?
What do you mean?
So you're saying that they seem to react very readily, yes or no? What kind of specifically? What do dogs? How do dogs?
Like if you give a dog a tincture, right? And I only do drop dosing with dogs with alcoholic tinctures. There's very little alcohol in a drop of tincture. I have covered that in my book scientifically. It's fascinating. But if I give a dog, let's say I give them 3 drops of cleavers, usually do it for 3 days because it takes about 72 hours or 42 hours. No, 72. I'm sorry, 72 hours for medicine to kind of get to the body to get used to it. But on that 4th day, if they start, like, cleavers can make dogs itch a little. Usually it goes away in 24 hours. And that's a good sign that the medicine is going to work, right? That it really is well indicated. And I use cleavers and calendula are my 2 kind of lymphatic remedies for dogs that I've found that are gentle but effective. Cleavers for for warm dogs and calendula for cool dogs. That's usually how I use it when I can establish they're energetic and at least warm and cool. And so I'll give cleavers. And if some dogs have no symptom, it's awesome from the day one. But some may itch a little bit in that first 24 hours, or maybe a little bit on that 2nd day. But by the 3rd day, it's gone. But if they're itching and scratching and anything is going awry on that 4th day, it's usually that the dose is too high or it's just not the right herb at all. And that's usually how it goes. And very consistently with animals. Whereas humans and I don't have to worry about them being in touch with their bodies, right? Humans a lot of people are so far disconnected from the things that they're taking in their body and how their body feels. Take for example, histamine, right? Histamine causes a lot of problems in humans and animals. If you eat something and within 30 minutes or even an hour, if your nose starts to run, a lot of people don't even recognize that. Oh, my nose is kind of, that's histamine. That means whatever you just ate, you're reacting to it, or if you eat something and your chin gets super red, if like you're a more warm person and your chin might get super red, it's probably something you shouldn't eat. Like you should keep that out of your diet for a while. Like a lot of people don't even look at it. Like I was in a group and this woman was obviously having a reaction to her wine. Like it started climbing up her neck and it just covered her whole face and just everywhere. And it was purple and She just kept drinking. Didn't, I mean, I was like, oh, lady, stop drinking. And I was stressing out. I was like, stop drinking. And, you know, and it's just all over her face. And that's not a healthy response.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not a healthy response. It's an inflammation response. It's a histamine response. She's not breaking down histamine from whatever she's drinking, you know, and, or it could be a response to the sulfates.
Yeah.
But whatever that response is, her body's not taking that in and breaking it down. And so humans, I think people are really kind of disconnected, where dogs aren't. They're not disconnected at all. And they can do self-selection. Animals can do self-selection. I wouldn't say their self-selection is 100%, but it's a good guide. Like if you put down, let's just say ashwagandha, you put down some turmeric, and you put down some ground up cleavers, right? They're going to tell you if they need any of those things or if they want any of those things. And the cool thing for me is when I do self-selection testing, almost all the time, it's energetically appropriate herbs. Like the dog who's cool is choosing the rosemary, it's choosing the ginger, it's choosing the turmeric, right? It likes the ashwagandha. And then the dog that is much more on the warm side, warm to hot, you know, even in those nice warm ranges, they're choosing the cleavers. They're, you know, they're choosing those nice cooling herbs. They're choosing the plantain, which, you know, warms my heart and just makes me geek out. And then a couple of times when the selection has been off, then all of a sudden I see that they have an acute issue. You know, they're treating themselves acutely. But the interesting thing about self-selection, and what a lot of people need to realize about self-selection, and this is the same goes for muscle testing or using a pendulum or whatever you want to use to test, is you can only test in that moment. You can't test in the future. Dogs can't tell you what they need in the future. So even if you use self-selection to help them with what they got going on right now, like if you use seasonal healing, which I'm super in love with, you can't, like herbalism can really help give you those tools to help prevent an issue. Do you know what I mean? And animals can't test for that. They can't self-select for that.
So preventing an issue due to being within the seasons?
Yeah, I love seasonal healing. I have a course coming out called The Seasonal Dog. It won't be for like 2 years because my book's coming out, and it's going to be book. But I have a course coming out called The Seasonal Dog, and it's working your dog through the seasons in a preventative way. And also, you know, that season, like we're in summer, and dogs that have heart problems, you need to be really careful with your dog that has heart problems in the summer. This is the time when something is going to happen, if it's going to happen for the most part. And it's the best time to work with that organ, to work with the heart and the small intestine, and to work with how your dog deals with heat. And to make sure that, you know, that dog that's like, maybe they're cold, right, gets out in that sun. It's going to be so healing for them. Or that dog that is hot and maybe hot and has cancer, because, you know, hot is more of a disease state. You want to make sure that they're cooling themselves off, that they're getting, you know, cooling herbs, and, you know, hawthorn and hawthorn leaf and flower. Love that. Nice and cooling. Really helps support the heart. Dogwood and dog rose I use for the heart. You know, and then you can use cactus and different types of things. But depending on what your dog needs, you can work in a preventative manner during that season to help prevent things coming in the next season, and also that season itself. So like working at the end of summer for that kind of shift change of weather, where you're going to get lung issues, you're going to get constipation, and, you know, those cool dogs get constipated so easily. And then when dogs get constipated, those lipomas start popping up. They keep the toxins in the body. And, you know, for dogs, a lot of people don't realize their dogs need to poop twice a day. You know, oh, this is that new thing.
That's how you get the spoons.
Your dog needs to poop twice a day. And A lot of dogs only poop once a day. And when you can get your dog to start pooping twice a day, some of the issues your dogs have clear up. Just like with people, so many people are constipated and they don't care. They're like, oh yeah. I only go to the bathroom like once every other day. And I'm just like, oh God. And, I'd be like, oh, we got to get this person pooping. But it's a miracle. It's like a miracle when someone starts going to the bathroom in a proper way, like what it's supposed to look like, a couple times a day. And all of a sudden their acne goes away. Some of their wrinkles go away. They stop coughing. I mean, it's a simple thing, but it's also an amazing thing. But it's the same with dogs. And but dogs don't hold their stool in their bodies as long as people, no matter what, because their digestive systems are so much shorter.
It's so interesting how the similarities, and they're almost like a reminder. What do you think? It seems like over the years, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, and I remember even when I was a kid, dogs were primarily outside. And it seems like more and more over the years, my husband certainly says this, he's 12 years older than me, where it was even more the case then. You had your hunting dogs, few dogs inside, but rarely. What do you think of this trend of people bringing dogs inside and just more and more animals in the household?
It's unfortunate. Here's the thing. We want what's best for our dogs. Like I said, I've got a 12-pound dog. She's not going to be outside alone. Otherwise, a hawk's going to carry her off, right? And we want to give our dogs love and care. I treat my dogs like my children, for sure. But we also have to remember, I think we're doing the same to our dogs that we're doing with ourselves. We got all this streaming on TV. We've got all of these things that we do inside. We need to spend as much time outside that we possibly can. And our dogs need to be with us. And when you start doing that, you're going to notice how much better you feel. When I was a kid, I grew up on a small farm, about 50 acres, but our house was on, like, I would say, 3 acres of kind of like mowed, like this little round circle with this house in the middle. And we had a dog named Susie. And I talk about her in my upcoming book, in the front of my upcoming book, because Susie lived until she was 24. Now, our family doesn't know if it's 27. So I'm going with 24 because I know for a fact that she lived until she was 24, being who left the house when and when we went to college. So Susie was always there. She was there before I was born. She was there before my sister was born. And my sister's older than me. And yet she was at least 24 years old. The differences between Susie and dogs now. Susie was not vaccinated. She was vaccinated for rabies, and that's about it. Okay. She wasn't vaccinated every year. She wasn't spayed. She followed us everywhere. I remember when, like, I spent a lot of time growing up on horses, ponies and horses. She was always there. She was, walking with us, always there, no matter where. Susie was there. And she got to breathe fresh air. She got to forage. She'd eat berries. I wish I would have paid more attention knowing what I do now. Like, God, if I could go back and tell my child, write this down, like, pay more attention. But I just enjoyed her. My dad took care of her. But it's like she had a litter of puppies. So she was able to reproduce. And then she didn't have a lot of puppies after that. So we kept her in the house when she was in heat, because you don't know what to do with all the puppies. You know what I'm saying? So, but she had the choice, because we were at the end of a dead end road. She never went anywhere. And she was a larger dog. She was a German Shepherd Collie mix. And she got the choice of sleeping outside or inside. Most of the times in the morning, we would wake up and she would be behind my dad's chair in the living room, sleeping by the stove. Okay. So, like, she would choose to come in. I don't know what time she came in, but she would be there in the morning. we would leave the garage. And a lot of people can't do that. So we live in this different society now. So what can we do to kind of mimic that kind of behavior? What can we do to get our dogs outside? We need to make time for ourselves. That's all we have to do. Like, and I know that like people make billions of dollars marketing to people to be more present, to breathe, to do meditation, to do yoga, to get outside, to do nature bathing. They even have a word for it. I forgot what that word is, but getting out into the forest and forest bathing, there's some fancy word for it. But these are the things that our souls and our cells are just that want us to do so much. It's like when we take a vacation and take time out. I recently did this in Europe. I unplugged, like left the phone in the hotel. I just didn't care. I couldn't help anybody anyways. I worked probably, I would say, a total of 8 hours while I was there. And I was there to speak too. So not counting that one day. But I just felt so much better. Like not being responsible. And the crazy thing, Tara, is that some people that I work with, some people like humans, I always say humans because I'm a dog person, so I have to differentiate. But a lot of people sometimes don't feel like something's real unless they document it now. Like if they don't take a picture of it or a video of it, it never happened. And, just being present, not trying to document every part of that moment, just being present to what is happening in that moment is now something we're striving for and is something special, but it never was. And the cool thing is I've asked a lot of people in their 20s. Anytime I'm around someone in their 20s, I ask them this question: how do you feel about cell phones? And so many of them have told me that they want them to go away. It's too stressful. It's too much, that they wish they could throw their cell phone away. And so I think it's just finding that balance. And the same thing with getting, more dogs are inside. The average American dog gets less than 15 minutes of exercise a day. And that means that we most likely are getting less than 15 minutes of exercise a day.
Right.
You see those workouts, 7 minutes in the morning, 7 minutes at night. We need to give ourselves more than 7 minutes. I don't care what we're doing. We need to be kinder to ourselves. And I think that, go out and sit with a plant. Your dog will love it. The plant will love it. And you'll love it, even if it feels awkward at first. Go sit with the plants. Go sit in the forest. Go sit on your lawn. Go sit somewhere where it's safe. Find dandelions. That's an always good, safe place to sit. And get outside. It's true. I feel that it's turning. I do feel like the pendulum is turning, and I'll tell you why. So this book just came out, and I'm on page 151 on the top. But this book came out, and this is a first timer. Okay, so this the Forever Dog was a book written by Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib, and it was a bestseller. It's been translated into like 24 languages. And when they went to publish this book, Tara, they were turned down by, it was like a Harry Potter. They were turned down by so many publishers saying people aren't interested in that. People would never feed their dog fresh food. People, don't care about their dogs like that. It's not true.
Mm-hmm.
And so they published the Forever Dog. It's a read, right? It's not a colorful dog. Never, this is colorful. It's full of recipes and stuff. And so now they have published this book, and it has went like wildfire. It's a bestseller. It's sold out in so many avenues where you're buying it. Just came out this month. The pre-sales were through the roof, and of course, publishers were giving their problems again, and book houses, and it just goes to show that people are hungry for this information. And it's the same with human herbalism. People are hungry for this information on how we take care of ourselves and how we prevent medicine, because Western medicine is so good at emergency medicine. It has saved my life twice. maybe 3 times. Very, very appreciative of emergency medicine. But any doctor will tell you, they'll straight up tell you, I don't know how to prevent that. And I don't know how to cure that. And I don't know how to keep you from getting cancer. And I can only do it once it happens. And then I can only give you a pill. I can't tell you how to change your diet. I can't tell you what herbs to take. And the herbs are the people's medicine. They're here for everyone. And they're such beautiful entities that give us their medicine and exchange that energy with us to help us. And I think herbs are giving us messages. And I think through our animals, we are learning about ourselves. Chismo Crow had a great quote that I put in my book. I don't know it exactly, but it's basically that the animals are put here with us to help us learn about diseases and how to cure them. And, sad, but also very true. Our animals are here for us to help us learn about ourselves. And I think one of the biggest way is as a reflection of who we are and who we're being in the moment. And they're always attentive. They're always present. They're always wanting us to be our best selves. Mm-hmm. And they're always forgive.
Sorry to you're so right. I just want to say you're so right. And I cannot think of a better concluding note. I mean, all of that. I won't even attempt to summarize it. And I don't have a dog, but I'm going to get your book. I think I can hear that there are many things to gain. And even if I glean something and share it with my grandma, for example, I'll hand it off to her as well. She lives for her animals. And I think many of us do. And I think you're so right about these things and animals getting us back to what's real, what we need, what is love. Just Avril is just commenting here, and to learn about unconditional love. And I know I've learned through my animals. And so I'm going to get the book. I am going to also check out more of your content because I want to have another conversation, but I want to pick out a few pieces and have another, maybe a specific topic. We'll chat. I know I'm going to have fun chatting with you behind the scenes. I'm going to encourage people to get your book as well. I have not read it yet, but I feel confident that to recommend.
Well, you'll definitely see my mentors in my book. What I've learned and kind of mapped it onto canine physiology. And mentorship is so important, passing on the knowledge to help others uplift themselves and to get that information out to as many people as possible.
Here's your website. It's simply canineherbalist.com. And if you go over to the hamburger menu on the right, you can see the herbal dog book, and you can pre-order. You also have a podcast, which you say you do.
I have a podcast. And you can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts. And I also have a course website, which is canineherbalism.com.
Rita, you are an inspiration, and I can tell the world is a better place for humans and animals alike because of you. And I look forward to talking more. This has been delightful. I wish I had more time today to chat. We have another program right after this. Otherwise, we could go on and on. Holy moly. I'll say too, for those of you who are joining us in the comments, whether you're here right now or in the future, if you have questions for a future episode, a topic that you'd like us to explore, go ahead and comment in the comments. And you can check out Rita's on social as well. How do they find you on social?
Canine Herbalist at Canine Herbalist in Instagram, Canine Herbalist on Facebook. And then I have a private group called Dogs Are Individuals.
Awesome. Make sure subscribe, follow Rita. I have for years, and I don't even have a dog, but I love animals, and it is inspiring what you've been doing on your channel, but then also to see you come out with this amazing book. I'm excited. When does it officially come out?
It comes out on February 4th.
All right. Well, Congratulations on that. It sounds like you know, a momentous gathering of how many years of practice now?
I think 22.
22
I
years.
started in 2000. I mean, I kind of go from like when I started making medicine. So for like commercial medicine, and I started making salves for my dogs in rescue. So that was 2002, 2003.
And what's the name of the company that you sold that makes these
Uh,
salves?
Farm Dog Naturals.
Farm Dog Naturals.
hmm
Wonderful.
Those are my babies. They've been around forever.
Is it farm with a PH or an F?
Oh, it's FARM. My boarding kennel was called Almost Home Pet Farm, because it was kennel free and they were running all over the place on 5 acres of our 36. And so I just called it Farm Dog. And then it became Farm Dog Naturals. And then my business partner and I sold it and then I went into this full time. So
That's pretty amazing, Rita. I want to hear next time we talk to, while you're doing all these things, running businesses, writing books, making courses, how you take the time, because I mean, running businesses alone can be a full-time plus endeavor. And so next time I'd like to hear from you, or if you have a quick tip, how do you keep
you have
it
a quick tip. I
Yeah.
do have a quick tip. Schedule time for yourself. Work in your hours that you have scheduled. Work. Like, don't spend it on Facebook or social media unless you're posting for work, but like work in your hours scheduled and take a lot of vacations. I do. So I learned the hard way on that one, Tara. I wasn't always like that. And I learned you have to take care of yourself for sure.
Well, thank you so much, Rita. I look forward to next time. I just have to say that. You have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for
Thanks,
making
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.